Our next speaker is Tony Butler. Tony has done an enormous amount for this conference. He's the project officer with TIA and has done all the work behind the scenes for this conference. I've only known Tony for 12 months, but he's really put a lot of effort into this and into the seed industry. He's going to now talk about a bit of an overview of the pasture seed industry in Tasmania to complete the scene of where we start. And so now I'll introduce Tony Butler.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for turning up. It's good to see a good turnout. Yeah, it's been a lot of effort put into this, so it's really rewarding. Thank you. So, as Rob was saying, I'm just going to be talking about the Tasmanian pasture seed industry and provide a bit of an overview. As Rob was saying, I work for the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture, or TIA, as we're formerly known as, and that's a joint venture between the University of Tasmania and the Tasmanian government. From that, I actually work with Rowan Smith here as part of, and Gary Martin in the Herbage development program. Okay, so I'm going to cover over three things today. A bit of an overview of the Tasmanian pasture seed industry, and then I'm going to go through a bit of growing pains. Like every industry, as it's developing and going forward, there's always some issues. And then at the end, I'm going to revise a bit of an industry survey. So the first thing is industry overview. The Tasmanian pasture seed industry is not a new industry. It's been well and truly established. It's been here since 1800s. Some of the articles you can see up on the screen there, dating back from the early 1900s and mid-1900s. So it's been here for quite a while. It's in the background, and yeah, we hope to push it further forward, and there's been a large investment going on in the last few years, which is really encouraging, and hence how we come to today. So the Tasmanian pasture seed industry is an exporter-based industry. Our biggest market is the domestic market on the mainland, so across the little Bass Strait there. Little is exported directly from Tasmania overseas, but then once it's on the mainland market, there's many opportunities to go on the global market. The last census, as the Minister was discussing, is at 2011 was 3,000 hectares used for pasture seed production, and by this I mean clover, chicory, plantain and grass. From this we produced 2,000 tonnes. However, the industry really believes that this has been growing significantly since the last census, so we look forward to the next one, and yeah, it's really quite positive. There's been a significant investment in the state industry. We've got two types of businesses based here. You've got the seed companies. You've got the Australian-based companies, for example, investing into Tas. These include the Tas Global Seeds, Upper Murray Seeds, Valley Seeds, Vic Seeds. They're all represented here today. Then we've got the internationally backed companies as well, for the likes of Heritage Seeds, Midland Seeds, PGG Wrightson Seeds, Seed Force, and South Island Seed Dressing and Storage. Yes, so we'll go into the next one, which is the range of species that the crops have been growing here. So we've got a few. We've got the dominant ones, which are grasses, cocksfoot, coloured brome, ryegrass and tall fescue. Then of course we've got the clovers, arrowleaf, Persian, red, white, and then of course we've got the herbs that we've been heard about earlier this morning, and this includes chicory and plantain. Now the most dominant species grown in the state are the ryegrasses, and from those it's usually the short terms. By that I mean the Italians and the annuals. And then of course you've got white clover on top of that. Seed production with the state is mainly proprietary cultivars. Now these are protected by the plant breeder rights. Now unfortunately there is a logo which I can't show here, but due to computer issues. But yes. Now these are, which Stuart was covering earlier, go back to the genetics and control that. And then these are protected, so it's like a copyright for pastures essentially, or for plant material. Seed production. These are typically grown in the north of the state. Now this is in the Northern Midlands and Meander Valley. The typical home, or the traditional home of pasture seed production, is in the Whitemoor, Longford area in Tasmania. However, with the new opportunities coming on board, and what we're hoping to discuss further about today, is the new irrigation schemes. Now, these are based in the northeast coast, the Midlands, and the East Coast and the Swan Valley. These are great opportunities to expand production into some unknown or previously unthought of areas outside the traditional pasture production areas in Tasmania. So if we break the region or the state into 3 distinct zones, so we've got the northwest, the northeast and the south, and this is using data from the 2011 census, we can see there the dominant region is in the northeast. Now this is approximately 2,700 hectares, and if we break that down further, the dominant area within this region is in the Northern Midlands. Now, as I was saying earlier, this is the traditional home of the pasture seed production in the state. And then neighbouring right next door, you've got the Meander Valley. Then, of course, you've got a little region on the east coast of Rako Day. However, if we start looking into the south, you can see some familiar scene. Again, the Central Highlands, mainly the north, is again the traditional home of pasture seed production. As you can see there, that's the second highest is at 132 hectares. If we start breaking this down further, you can see there again we've got some production going on the east coast. And then of course we've got a little bit done on the northwest coast as well. This is outside the norm area, mainly due to climate conditions, it's limiting areas. So, the market opportunities in Tasmania. Why should we grow in Tasmania? Why is Tasmania a good area to grow pasture seed? Well, we've got a market advantage. Compared to a major competitor in the Southern Hemisphere, New Zealand, we can get our product to the market quicker. This is a plus for us. We've got the irrigation investment going on with 95% reliability. Also, opportunity for new irrigated lands, as I was discussing earlier, and as the Minister was discussing. Cost of production. This is we're quite a competitive area compared to other regions in the state, and that's a positive thing for us. We'll work our way. Climate. With our cool, dry summers, or mild, dry summers, and cool winters, there's a great opportunity there, great for the carbohydrates and loading up the seed. Also, more tools in the toolbox. Now, compared to other regions in the world, and this is mainly supported through our grain industry, we have more agrochemicals available to us compared to the likes of New Zealand, and even more so than Denmark, which is almost an organic-based product, or they have very limited weed control or fungicide controls. So now I'm going to go through some of the yield production in the state. So I've broken it down to the ryegrasses and tall fescues. So we'll go through each of them. So this is a 14-year annual ryegrass production, and you can see there you've got the seasonal effects. But as a general trend, you can see that generally our yields are increasing, which is fantastic. We start breaking that down into Italian. Again, you see the same trend, but at a higher or increasing rate, which is again brilliant. Now, our perennial ryegrass yields have been pretty static over the last 14 years. We've hit the limit there, so hopefully with the course over the next few days with our international expertise and everyone here, we might be able to push forward and see what we can do. And then of course, this is a similar trend with tall fescue. Now this is seen as a parodic crop, so hence why there's some missing data there. Now, if you look at all the trends, you can see there that, you can see that everything's increasing, apart from those two I was talking about earlier. It makes a very busy graph too. Now, if we look at our clover yields, that's quite extraordinary. So this here is grouped all clovers together. So white is like reds, a whole lot. And as you can see there, over the last season or so, we've had a dramatic increase in clover production or yield production, which is really positive. So things are getting out there. Now, as I was saying earlier, every industry has some growing pains. Now, if we want to basically go through each of one of these, the biggest one, the first one, is cleaning capacity. Now, this is a limitation of our production to try and get our product to the market. There's a backlog. Of course, we want to get our product out there. Most of the seed is pre-sold, so that's an issue. Improved weed control. Again, crop rotations, of course what Stuart was talking about, the seed certification, making sure you've got all the like species within there. A greater number of harvesters available. Of course, we all want to get our crop off the paddock as soon as possible at the same time, and there seems to be a bit of an issue with that. And also the cost of direct heading, that's another issue that's been identified. versus windrowing and picking up from there. For the likes of clover, it could be more advantage to direct head. Quarantine biosecurity needs to be a better understanding, I think, between all parties, and it's a positive thing to work forward with. And PGRs, plant growth regulators. Now this is an exciting thing for the likes of Modus, and something that we need to work on further in the state. Okay, financial return or rewards. Now that seems to be the biggest issue, or the turn-off for a lot of people when they're trying to grow pasture seed, is the return of that crop. You probably need to start looking at the whole net production of your farm instead of just looking at the one crop, but also the benefits pasture seed production brings to your soil. And the transport issue, cleanliness of trucks, that can also degrade the quality of your product, so making sure just attention to detail when things turn up on the farm is very positive. Beehives for clover crops. Traditionally our clover crops have been at the flower at the same time as the leatherwood plant, and therefore that's seen as a higher priority crop. It's more of a higher earner for the aviists, and therefore they typically move the beehives to those regions, and then costs more to try and get the beehives back into the flowering clover crops. And of course, research and development, or RD&E as we call it. There seems to be a need for further research in the state, like for example the PGRs and development of a few things, but also getting the information out there to the industry as well. So it needs to be done. Okay, the third thing I'm going to cover today is the industry survey. Now, I've been conducting a survey over the last 10 months. I originally launched this at AgFest, and from this I've got 47 completed surveys. Now the survey has been Tasmanian focused, and the sources have been mainly through field days, but also internet distribution through third parties, which I have to thank all those people that have been involved. It's been fabulous. So the first thing I'd like to really ask, and a lot of this feeds into the market or the end use of pasture seed as well. So we'll talk about a little bit things. So this is how it relates back to this conference. So on average, how often do you renew your pastures? Well, as you can see there, the biggest people, or the biggest user, or the end use, is 11 to 20 years. So most people take that long before they renew their pastures. This is followed by 6 to 10 years. But however, most people seem to think they're going to be renewing their pastures every 3 years. So there seems to be a lot of land coming available in the next 3 years, which is fantastic to hear. What agronomic factors discourage you from renewing pastures? Well, these are the two biggest ones here. Unsure about improved pasture and stock performance of new cultivars, and this relates back to extension and RD&E, getting that information out there, but also difficulty in establishing pasture. So there is a need for agronomics to get in there. Okay, what agronomic factors do you consider when selecting a pasture variety? Now this is interesting. This is, to you who've been in the industry for quite a while, it's not too surprising. Pasture persistence, making sure that pasture lasts a long time, which feeds back to our original slide at 11 to 20 years, but also pasture performance and vigour. That's also very important. Now, if we start returning back to the pasture seed industry here, the growers that I have managed to get feedback from, if we start looking into what benefits did they see, these are the list of things that they've come back with. The good financial returns compared to other crops contradicts what you probably saw a little bit earlier. But yeah, that's a positive thing to see, and that's probably coming back to their whole farm productivity. The flexible use of the paddock within the crop, going into dual purpose, grazing, and then taking the seed off, and then also taking your baleage and silage and hay cuts as well. Fits well within the crop rotation. It's a restorative crop process, going to be good for some of the regions in the Midlands. Dual purpose use, as I was explaining, and also good soil health, a benefit for all of us, or for the farm industrial. What factors do you see as important for you to consider growing a pasture seed crop? So returning back to pasture seed production, now it's these three here. There seems to be a need for agronomic support or personal skills, delivering that information out there, and the suitability to property, again, coming back to the information and knowing what needs to be and where it is. And of course the cost of returns, or the gross margins, that seems to be something that people want to know more about. And hopefully we can come to all those conclusions over the next 3 days. So, in conclusion, Tasmania has the potential to be a global player of the pasture seed production market. We've got the climate, we've got a large market right on our doorstep, we've also got a quality, we've got the irrigation investment going on, reliable water supply, 95% reliability through Tasmanian irrigation. And finally, we've got the biosecurity advantage as well. Being an island state, as Stuart was saying, and hopefully we'll hear a little bit more over the next 3 days, we control what's coming in, control what's going out, keeps our quality up there. However, like every industry, there's a few issues as we grow and get bigger, and that's all right, we'll drive forward. And there seems to be a need for RD&E with the industry, getting that information out there, assist with the yield gains, training, production data and information sharing. These are all positive things, and as you can see from the survey, there seems to be a need for sharing that information. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. I look forward to meeting you over the next few days. If you wish to contact me, best to try and contact me over my email, which is up there, or visit me at Mount Pleasant. I'd like to thank you very, very much. Thank you.